American Entrepreneur, where we interview entrepreneurs all over the world. As long as they do business in the United States and they're building a team or helping people out in accomplishing their goal, we want to hear their story. Maybe they have something that has happened in their life that they can tell you and you can take and apply to your own business and become successful. The guest we have today, I'm very excited because when I met him, he's as energetic as me, and he has an incredible story to share with you. His name is Luc Despres, and he is the owner at Mindshift Strategies and also known as the Ultimate Goal Getter. So I'd like to please welcome Mr. Luc Despres. Thank you very much, man.
What's up, man? Thank you so much for having me on, Mike. It's an honor. I've been watching your show a little bit, and man, what you do is appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, man. The whole thing came from, I was at an entrepreneurial think tank a year ago, and I realized that everybody, no matter what industry you're in, if you're an entrepreneur, you've been through some hard times, and you obviously have something to teach others, and that's why the American Entrepreneur inspires people, hopefully.
Awesome.
So jump right into it, man. What got you into the world of entrepreneurship? How did you get started? Some things you learned? Just jump right in, man.
Yeah. So in the same way that if I showed you some diamonds on my hand, okay, but if I laid some black velvet on there and laid that on there, it would make a big difference, right?
Yeah.
And so I can't tell you what brought me there without telling you where I've been, all right? And so I'm going to go into my story because it's the only way that I can really portray the whole image of where I'm at. All right?
Go for it, man.
Awesome. It's going to get intense. I'm warning you.
I like to hear it.
Sweet. So basically, it's like you said, my name is Coach Luc Despres. I'm a life coach and a professional network marketer. I have been a network marketer for just a little over a decade, which is basically multi-level marketing, right? And life coach has been my passion for a long time. And I was held back by limiting beliefs myself. And I just never took it full force until actually like this, just last year. Just last year, I took it full force. I said, screw it. I'm going for it. I don't care if I lose everything in the process. I'm going to gain so much by going for it.
I love it. I love it.
So I committed full force, laser focus, and it's been a phenomenal journey. So going back, basically growing up, I'm going to give you my life story right now.
All right.
So growing up, the life that I lived, my parents were both heavy drinkers, like alcoholics. My dad was a drug addict. My mom was severely depressed, like massively, to a point where I literally saw her at one point locking herself up in a bedroom for an entire year. She couldn't face the world. Anytime anyone would show up, like she was just bolted out and she was gone.
Bolted out? You mean ran out of the house or out of the house or the room?
Like, yeah, she'd run into her bedroom, like she couldn't face anything. Now at this point, my dad and I are like best friends. I just want to put that out there before I go into kind of the details. But my dad was not ready to have a child, and he had his issues, and I had to endure some abuse. And anyways, as we're going through this, it was a really, really hard situation because I not only witnessed, or I guess I not only dealt with my own abuse, but I dealt with seeing my mom and dad kind of fight a lot, right? Screaming, yelling all the time. There was parties, like I'm 4 years old, and there was parties every weekend, all weekend, and I was in the midst of that, like loads of people drinking, smoking up, doing drugs. I'm there sleeping on the couch, right?
Jeez. You mean at your house?
Yeah, at my house. And so all weekend like that, every weekend. I remember when I was 4 years old as well, we were living in like the lowest of the lows in our community here. It's like major projects. And I was in my backyard, 4 years old, and I had this 5-year-old just enter my backyard with a knife and threaten to poke my eyes out. Okay, so that's the kind of environment I grew up in as a small child.
And this is in New Brunswick, which that's where you're at right now.
Yeah, in Canada,
yeah.
The place that everyone thinks we're extra nice.
Okay.
The true story comes out right now. So basically, that went on for a while. Just my parents always fought. When I was about 9 years old is when they finally split up for the last time. I say finally because every few days my mom and dad would fight so much and my mom would kick him out of the house. And so he had his bags packed and like just always stored there because he knew he was out any minute. At 9 years
If
old.
you don't mind me asking, what did they do for a living?
Now?
No, then.
Uh, Mostly welfare, social assistance. And
Okay.
my dad had odd jobs here and there, just like stacking drywall, like carpet work, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I just lived in a very kind of like poverty-stricken mentality environment. So 9 years old, they finally split up. Biggest issue is every time they fought, it was typically because my mom was too soft and my dad was too strict, and they would just fight about that. So in my mind as a 9-year-old, I thought this is my fault, right? Their fight was my fault. Their divorce is my fault. And so I grew up thinking that for a long time. When they split up, I went completely downhill. 9 years old, I remember walking on the street with a friend of mine, and I saw this house. Prior to that, I said to my friend, I want some more adventure in my life. I'm 9 years old, right? I want some more adventure in my life. And so we're walking on the street, and I see this house, it's this big house, and this nice window at the top. And as though it was like destiny, I looked down at my feet, and there's this beautiful rock sitting right there, ready for me to pick up. And so I picked up that rock, and I threw it out the window, and it shattered, and I loved it.
Oh my god! Jeez,
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So, hold on.
You saw a house for no reason, picked up a rock, threw it at the window, breaks the window.
Exactly. I just wanted more adventure. So I felt the adrenaline, and I loved it, and I got hooked to that feeling. And so I was always looking for ways to satisfy that. It was like a drug to me. And so I started doing some really stupid stuff. I was like setting stuff on fire. I was graffitiing places up. I started shoplifting. That became obsessive. I couldn't pass by a store without shoplifting. It was pretty intense.
Because of the fear of getting caught, basically, it was a challenge. Is that how you looked at it?
Yeah.
Is a way for you to beat the system, I guess you could say.
Exactly. I've always been opposed to the system. I've always hated the system. It just didn't feel right. I never felt like I fit in that mold, which is why I'm an entrepreneur.
Exactly right.
So I'm doing all these crazy things. At age 9, that year, I started smoking cigarettes. I want you to imagine this. At age 9, I was smoking about a half pack of smokes a day. Okay.
Oh my god. Oh man, that's crazy. I remember meeting a kid who was 12 years old, and I said, "You smoke cigarettes?" He goes, "Yeah, man, I'm trying to quit." At 12. So I mean, that blew my mind. But you're at 9 years old then. Okay.
Yeah. When I was about 12, I started to smoke, like to do drugs. I started to I started with hash. I'm not even sure people even know what that is anymore.
I remember hearing the term. I never tried anything like that.
Okay. So I started with hash, and then I went into marijuana and experimented with a few things. I never went into hard drugs, or thank goodness. But everything I touched, I became chronic. It's like if it was shoplifting, I was like a chronic shoplifter. If it was smoking up, I was a chronic pot smoker. If it was drinking, right, which I started when I was 13, started drinking, I started drinking a lot. So everything I did full force. And so I'm 13, smoking, drinking, doing drugs, shoplifting.
I'm taking deep breaths here. I'm thinking about this. Doing all this stuff. Okay.
It's insane. So around age 13 is when I started to attract a lot of like opposition from people, where I would start to get like jumped by groups of people. So groups of people just like target me out. I'm not sure why exactly. There was no specific reason for it. They would just target me out and just beat the crap out of me.
What the heck?
Yeah. The first time I got beat up, I actually jumped, I was 6 years old, and I was cornered on the side of a building, and I got beat up. Two 15-year-olds held me against the building, and a girl who was actually the leader of their gang, beat the crap out of me. So that was the first experience with getting jumped. But
so man, I mean, this is probably toughening you up inside. You don't even know it though at this point.
yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. So 15, I joined a gang when I was 15, just a local gang, and did some more crazy stuff there. And at that point, the people that were jumping me, it intensified. And so I was literally getting jumped by groups of people like once to twice a week. That happened for, I think, about a year and a half, to a point where I got so used to it that I would see them, they'd come at me, I'd drop to the ground, they'd jump me, I'd wait till they were done, and I'd get up and walk away. Like nothing happened.
It's like you were expecting it, and it was just a part of your routine then.
Exactly. It's just my day. That's what it was like. So, yeah. So anyways, this is all going on. I want you to imagine this now. So I'm this like punk. I'm not sure if you understand the term wigger.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I'm this punk wigger, right? Pants down past my butt, baggy, either a backward hat or a sideways visor, chronic pot smoking, gang member, living in the projects with a single mom on welfare. And my first dream is here, okay? I have this thought. I said, I can't wait to have a child one day.
That was your dream. That's your first dream.
15 years old. I said, I can't wait to have a kid someday. And when I do, they're going to have a way better life than I've ever had. That was the dream at that moment. So I can't wait to have a kid. And when that happens, it's going to be a way better life than I've ever had. I don't know where that came from because I had no way of knowing of even perceiving a better life at that point. But that was my dream.
Wow.
One. Number two, I'm walking down the street one day and I see this car. And the car was okay, but the color, I loved the color. It was just this brilliant blue color. And I said, if ever, not when, if ever I get a car one day, that's how poverty-stricken I was. That's the color I want for my car. That was dream number two.
Wow.
Okay.
So it wasn't even the car itself. It's just that color.
It's the color. It just it gripped me. And I said, I want that color for my car.
You knew you were attracted to it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So number three, every Christmas time we go to my uncle's house, and I loved his house. It wasn't like this massive, huge mansion, but to me it was like beyond me, right? It was like I could never have that. It was modest, it was beautiful, and I said, if ever I have a house, if that's possible, this is what I want. I want something like this. Okay, so those are my three childhood dreams.
Wow. Very, very basic. Not like, hey, I want to be the richest man in the world dreams. They're essentials you're looking for. Incredible.
Yep.
All right.
Exactly. So, but to me, where I came from, that was like out of reach, right? That was out of reach to me. So fast forward. Oh, I got a munchkin in the back.
I see the little guy back there.
So fast forward. At 16, I actually had a really bad experience with a drug called acid. That was the hardest drug I've ever had. And
what was it?
Acid.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's a hard drug. Yeah. Okay.
That's the hardest one that I've ever taken, and it wasn't consistent. I did it twice.
Wow.
The first time I did it, it was no problem. This time, I took that and it totally messed me up. I went to this massive, just horrendous trip, and I literally thought I was going to be stuck in that state for life. And so I ended up going to the hospital because my mom didn't know what to do. And I'm not going to explain the trip, but anyways, I get to the hospital and something was happening in my environment that drove me nuts. And so I figured out that if I would hit my ears, it would stop. So I want you to picture this. I'm at the hospital in the waiting room, tripping on acid. And every time this would start to happen, I would like smack my ears, right? And so I'm sitting here just smacking my ears in this waiting room, And they had to come get me and strap me to the bed because they were afraid that I would bust my eardrums.
Oh my God.
And so I'm strapped to the bed now, tripping out, and I have to endure it until it's over. And I went into this massive trance where I wasn't even like conscious. I didn't even know where I was. I was inside my own head. And I remember at one point I snapped out of it quickly, and I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, kill me. I don't want to go through this anymore." And that tore her to pieces because she's like the soft, kind-hearted person. She loves her son, and this is tearing her to pieces. Finally, I get through that, and I get back home. And shortly after, I decided to stop the drugs completely, stop smoking pot, all that stuff. I stopped smoking cigarettes that year.
What year is this?
I was 16. I'm 30. I'm going to be 32 in April. So
wow.
Is that 16 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, 16 years ago. So
wow.
2001. Yeah, 2001. So I pretty much stopped everything. I still didn't have any direction in my life. I really had no purpose. Right, I was just kind of going through the motions. When I was about 19, finally legal to go to the bar, I ended up. Wait, hold on. Backtrack. At 16, I decided to move out of my mom's and get my own place. So I got a job at a local coffee shop, Tim Hortons, comparable to probably like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts.
Is that what Tim Hortons is? Basically, a coffee shop everywhere, basically, right?
Yeah. It like dots Canada.
Okay. Yeah, just like Starbucks then.
Exactly. So basically, I get a job there full time. My mom hated the fact that I was moving out. She didn't want me to. So I move out, get my own apartment. I was doing very well, actually. I had a nice apartment. People walked in there. They were like, "Are you sure a 16-year-old lives here? Like, this is pretty nice." So I had it all decked out really nice. Got with this girl. 6 months later, she moved in. Things were going okay, but we weren't getting along. We ended up being together for like 3.5 years.
It's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
At 19, I go to the bar for the first time legally, and I end up breaking my hand in 3 places.
In a fight?
Well, funny story. So this guy was drunk, and he started to kind of say some really rude things to a girl that was with us, and I was drinking, and so I got a bit upset about that, and I threatened him. And his girlfriend steps in front, just right between us, punches me in the face 5 times, and I'm like, I can't hit her back, but I'm super angry right now. And so I ended up going to the front of the bar, and I punched the window. And every time I punched the window, I just had to let go of that rage, and that's how I dealt with my rage for a long time. I just punched things, like busted walls and stuff like that. I had a really massive anger issue. Yeah, I mean, with everything that was going on. So every time I punched the window, it would break a bone. And I punched it 3 times. And so I broke my hand here, and right here. My pinky was this bone was totally detached. Got it pinned. Anyways, lost my job as a result. I'm on the verge of losing my apartment, and my girlfriend at the time decides she's going to leave me. And so all in one shot, boom, 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 same month.
Right there, you're at ground zero. You're starting from nothing, with nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So toward the end of that month, which is when I was going to have to leave the apartment, I met another girl at a friend of mine's house who passed away actually just this last year. We're best friends for 17 years. That was a tough one. He was 36.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I met her at his place, and we clicked. And so we started to date, and she wanted to help me, but she didn't have a place of her own. She was actually living with a friend. So she did the best thing she could. She bought me a tent. She bought me supplies and some food. And I lived in the middle of a trail in the month of October in Canada for about a month.
Oh my God! You're living in a tent.
Yes. Living in a tent for an entire month. In the month of October, it was freezing then. And I was actually afraid of the dark at the time. I was 19, and I was, I was really tough. But when it came to the dark, I was like, ugh, it gripped me.
Man, here I am thinking I had it pretty tough growing up, and this is pretty crazy. All right, I'm
It's
loving
pretty
it.
intense. And so I went through some crazy stuff at that point. I had to bike everywhere. I didn't have a car, obviously, and so I ended up at some point trying to move back with my mom. Me and my mom's boyfriend never got along. Like we were at each other's throats like crazy. We literally got into a fight one day, like a fist fight, on the side of the highway on Boxing Day, which is kind of funny. Um, and so anyways, we got into a fight there. We got into some crazy stuff, and so he didn't want me to live with them again. My mom convinced them to at least have me live in the backyard in the tent instead of the woods. And by that night, he agreed to have me stay inside for a little bit. Didn't work out. Ended up moving with my dad about a half hour away, which I was still on a bike. So I biked there with all my stuff. And oh, sorry, and that's a half an hour drive.
Yeah, so probably what I'm thinking, maybe a couple hour bicycle ride then at
Yeah,
least.
definitely. So I'd bike up there, and but my girlfriend at the time was still living back where I was, but even further away. So it was about a 45 to 50-minute drive. What I would do is every 2 days I would bike from my dad's to her place and then back to go see her. When I was at my dad's, things were okay at first, but I started drinking heavy. And it got really out of control. My dad and I got into a huge fight, kicked me out, and I was back at square zero. From there, my girlfriend and I, finally we got each job, got a place in the basement of a house. And this is where things started to shift. So I'm in this basement apartment of this house, and still no direction, no purpose, no reason for really living. Just going through the motions, and things were going okay. I wasn't very happy though. And all of a sudden, I did something, or something happened at my job, and I ended up getting fired. And so I'm now jobless. She wasn't good at keeping a job either, and so she ended up losing hers, and we're down to no income again. But in this process, what happened is, now just to kind of give you, I guess this is important, I had no belief in God whatsoever. I didn't care to believe in God. It was just like, I made my rules. What I said was right. So I was like my own God. It was like, no one can tell me what to do except me, and there's no boundaries here for me. But my limitations were my boundaries, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I'm not sure where to go, where to turn. And all of a sudden, we're running out of food, and the guy upstairs and his wife, totally random, he did not know our situation, would order food for 5 people, but they were only 3. Okay? And they came down and said, look, we ordered for 5 and we're only 3. We're wondering if you want some food. I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Right? So we went up, ate some food, and they did this for an entire week for no apparent reason. When that stopped, my girlfriend at the time got a call from a best friend, the one she was living with prior to living with me, who said, we're moving to Ontario and we have a deep freezer full of food. We have to get rid of it. Do you want it?
Oh my God, timing.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so,
yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, of course. It filled our freezer up 3 times. Like, tight, okay? So that kept us going for a while. And then my mom ended up, well, hold on, backtrack. So I always jump the gun sometimes here. So what happened is I'm laying there one night, and I'm just going about my own business, trying to sleep. And I had no intentions on figuring things out. I was just there. And then all of a sudden this thought comes in my mind, and it drove me crazy. I was like, I have to know the answer to this question. It was, what happens to me after I die? I've never even thought of that question, ever in my life. And that thought came, and it entered my heart, and it just like took over my life. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't have an answer, and I thought, like, am I just going to go through this whole life and then that's it? Like, I just perish? Like,
Yeah.
it's
What's
like,
the point, right?
exactly, that's what I said. What's the point? Like, why would I go through all this crap just to never exist again? It just didn't make sense to me. And so at that moment, I really reflected on that, and literally it was driving me insane. Like, I couldn't stand it. It was just eating away at me. A week goes by, a week and a half goes by, and I'm like, I need an answer. And so I actually reached out to my mom, who was a devout Catholic, and said, I need a Bible. And I remember she was pretty shocked because I hated religion and I hated this whole concept of God. When I asked that question, she said, well, I don't have one. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I call my grandmother ma mère. Does my mère have one? No. Well, can you find me one? She's like, I'll try. All right. So that night, I got on my knees and I did my first real sincere prayer. And I said, God, if there is a God, I need to know that you're there, because if you're there, it means I have a purpose. It means there's a reason why I'm here. And whatever that is, I want to do it. That was my first prayer.
You're talking to God for the first time there. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
And nothing happened in that moment. I didn't feel anything. Nothing happened. It took my mom a week to find me a Bible. Finally, she says, all right, your grandmother's brother has a Bible for you. Just head over there, pick it up, and you're good to go. So I headed over. They were beautiful people, just such lovely people. They spent about like 45 minutes to an hour with me, just kind of figuring out where I'm at. And they gave me this Bible, and I brought it home. And just to let you know, I hated reading. I hated reading.
Oh man, me too. Growing up, I hated it. But I fell in love with it, man. And that's what I started to see personal development come so fast from reading. So.
Oh man. So yeah, so I despised it. I remember I'm pretty sure it's one book up to that point, and it was called Goosebumps. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Goosebumps. Yeah. That's your first book?
It was my first book when I was a kid.
Unbelievable. I loved Goosebumps back in the day. Loved it.
Yeah. And I only read one because I couldn't get through it.
Yeah, and how old are you right now?
Well, no. That book there I read when I was younger.
Yeah.
But that was the only book I had read. I may have been like 6 or 7, and that was the extent of my reading.
Amazing.
Ever at this point. And now I'm about 21.
And you have not read one book? No,
outside of that partial Goosebump book when I was like 6 or 7.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And so now I'm faced with this book. And luckily I started with the New Testament, not the Old Testament, because that would have been brutal.
You started with the New Testament.
Yeah. So I started there, and I just read, and I read. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I understand what I'm reading, which was odd because I always heard that the Bible was hard to understand. And so I was like, it's the first time I actually understand what I'm reading. This is great. And so I soaked it up. And the more I read, the better I felt. The more I read, just things were like opening up to me.
You felt closer to God almost. Is that really what it was?
Absolutely. I was on this like spiritual high at one point. It was like so intense. I would leave the house and things that were always there, like trees and clouds and suns and all this thing, the mountains in the background, I had never noticed that before in the way that I noticed it at that point. It was like, wow, like that is really beautiful. Like, I can't believe how beautiful this is. It's like the world was opened up to me all of a sudden. And I was like, God created that for me. And in that moment, I felt loved. I felt accepted for the first time. Like, I was hiding behind a shell my whole life. I was never the outgoing type. I was really shy. I was with my friends. I was.
You do not seem shy at all.
No, not anymore. But I was the shy guy walking with his head down. If I was with a certain group of people, I was more open, but I was still acting, right? I still wasn't being me.
Yep.
I
And
never
it's
felt
it's a defense mechanism right there.
exactly. And so I just never felt good enough to fit anywhere. But then I found this book and I started reading it. And I remember I was in there one night and I'm still asking this question. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. Girlfriend's sleeping beside me and I'm still awake. And I like yell out almost, I know what to do. She wakes up and she's like, looks at the time, looks at me. She's like, Luke, go to bed, man. Like, what are you doing? I was like, no, seriously, I don't know what to do about this whole death thing. She goes, what? I said, I have to go to church.
Church. You've never been to church? Never.
Well, when I was like younger, before the age of 6, Mom brought.
Yeah, you never went on your own before this.
Oh, and my mom stopped bringing me because I was too disruptive. I was always causing trouble. And so I say this, she's half asleep. She still musters up the energy to laugh because she knows me, right? Next day, I call my best friend of 17 years. I tell him this. He laughs at me too because he's like, this is ridiculous. We don't like church. What are you talking about? And so it took me about a week to get over myself enough to go to church. I was Catholic at the time. And so I go to the Catholic church and I loved it. I loved it.
Catholic church. I'm a Catholic, so.
So I sat in the front row. I absorbed it all in. I became good friends with the priest, which was actually in his I think early to mid 40s. He was quite young for a priest. Became really good friends with him. I was there like 5 to 6 days a week, just soaking it all in.
Wow. And
so I decided, and this is where my compulsive, obsessive disorder comes in. If you remember, I said that everything that I do, I'm chronic at it, right? I go full force. And so I was there all the time. And I decided, I was praying like crazy. I decided I'm going to become a priest.
What?
Right
that's when you decided to go into, what do they call priesthood? But there's another word for it. I'm trying to think of what it is. But you decided to be a priest.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Because I wanted to serve God. At this point, I was converted. I knew that I really felt that God existed. I felt that Jesus Christ really did what he did. That he paid for my sins. I felt that he loved and respected me and that I had a mission to do for him because of what he did for me. That was what I got from the Bible alone. So I decided that I was going to get my girlfriend to be baptized as a Catholic. So we started going to adult catechism and taking these lessons. And as we're taking these lessons, it was funny because we read scripture and then talk about it. And every time I opened my mouth, everyone there seemed to be astonished by my words. It's like they was like just dumbfounded.
Yeah,
I thought that was strange.
You had a gift for it then.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there was this spiritual guidance that I was receiving that was just so powerful. And when I spoke, everyone just listened and gravitated and were just astonished. And that was weird because I was brand new to this stuff and they were all like veterans. So I kept that in my heart. I was like, this is weird. But I kept going. And so I kept reading the Bible, kept going to these classes, kept praying, and I decided that I would extend my search. And I'm not going to go into too much detail from here about that whole process. But I ended up leaving the Catholic Church based on what I was reading in the Bible, which shocked me because, I mean, it killed me. It killed me because I really thought this was my path, right? I was going to be a priest.
Right.
And as I was reading, there were just too many inconsistencies between what was being taught there and what was being taught in the Catholic Church for me personally. And I was like, oh, now what? Right? Like, what do I do? And my deal was, I don't care about following a religion per se. I want to follow God, right? I want to follow Christ. And so if he's not guiding me in this direction, I want to know where he's guiding me. That was number one.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So this was a pretty big turning point. I mean, I'm fresh, just a few months in, and then this happens, and it's like, oh, it hits me hard. So I started to go to the library